I saw the trailer and I'm like, yeah, I saw it. Wish I didn't. That was my vibe. I maintain my original opinion of Vanderpump Rules, and that is that it should not have been rebooted. Because put some respect on the OG's names. Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks, breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture. Cozy season's here. I got my Sea Spa candle lit. I'm on the verge of a sinus infection, which it's like, can't tell the difference for the past year. I've lived with a sinus infection, I feel like, for the past year and a half. So I feel like all my friends are texting me like, oh, I feel like absolute garbage right now. I feel like death. Like, yes, it's that time of year, but also I've lived like this. I'm like, remember that scene on Lion King where he's like, danger. I laugh in the face of danger. That's how I feel about sinus infections at this moment in time. Like, mucus, what? Where? Because it lives in me at this point. It's exciting. November is an exciting month. My surgery month is coming up. Who's counting? 2 weeks away, actually. November 20th, I'm getting all this ick drained out of my face. I cannot wait. Sometimes you're a little bit nervous about a surgery. Not me. I'm like, put me under. Like, I don't even care. I have to stay there a couple days, weeks at this point. Do what you got to do. So really looking forward to that. BravoCon is next week. That's crazy. I haven't told anybody this. Well, actually, I did tell my Patreon girlies a while back because they're the first to know everything. Keep your fingers crossed for me. I'm like 95% sure that this is happening, but I thought I would let you guys know. I was invited to do a content creator carpet where I get to interview Bravo Loves at BravoCon, at a red carpet that you would see on a movie set. So I'm super excited about that. Also scared out of my mind. Let's not get it twisted. They were like, yeah, 50 or so Bravo celebrities. I was like, 50? Ruh-roh, you know what I mean? How am I supposed to remember questions for 50 people? But we're going to figure it out because that's what we do. The show must go on. That's showbiz, baby. Fake it till you make it with my Vicks menthol cough drops ready to roll. Sometimes I have so many cough drops that it does give me a little buzz. So maybe that will work in my advantage, loosen me up a little bit. Thanksgiving, best holiday of the year. And I'm going to be recovering from surgery, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I can't smell anyways. I haven't smelled a food source in like I said, a year and a half. So I'm thinking, is it going to be worse or better after I have surgery? Am I going to be able to smell things? Am I going to be able to taste things? I'm not entirely sure, but I will be on the ride with you. Honorable mention before we get into this week's Pop 3. We have so much to talk about, so much. But I do want to have a little honorable mention for the sexiest man alive, Jonathan Bailey. Rightfully so. I feel like absolutely nailed it this year. I don't know if you saw. I mean, how could you not see the photos of him with the dog? Oh my gosh. Wow. Unbelievable. And Wicked for Good is coming out this month too. November is the best month ever. So congratulations to Jonathan Bailey. I kind of feel like he looks like my husband a little bit. Not much. Okay. I don't say not much in a shade way. I just see some resemblance. It's the shaggy-ish hair. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, and the accent. Anyways, let's get into this week's actual Pop 3. Biggest stories in reality TV and pop culture. We got the Vanderpump Rules reboot trailer this week. We sure did. Dropped on a Monday. I forcibly make myself get off of the internet, so I wasn't able to do a live reaction to it. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not necessarily mad about that. I saw it. It's I could really make one if I wanted to, right in the moment. It's a huge story. I saw the trailer and I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I saw it. Wish I didn't. That was my vibe. I maintain my original opinion of Vanderpump Rules, and that is that it should not have been rebooted. Because put some respect on the OG's names. Like, Vanderpump Rules to me will only ever be the originals. And I mean, I know the originals came and went through seasons and whatever, but the show was just so unique to that specific cast that I'm very pessimistic. And I'm not saying that it's not going to be good. It's just not going to be the same. And I feel like if it's not going to be the same, you might as well start a new show. It's like, why just slap the Vanderpump Rules sticker on something that isn't actually going to be what we have come to know and love as Vanderpump Rules? I'm being a Debbie Downer about it because I'm stuck in my ways. And you can never really tell how a season is going to play out just based on the trailer. But I am getting a little bit of like try hard energy. Like they're trying to recreate the lightning in a bottle that was circa 2010, but I just don't know that it's doable. And after looking at the like official cast photo, it just confirmed my suspicions all along. And that is that Lisa Vanderpump is a big reason as to why the show is being rebooted and not riding off into the sunset when it's meant to. I said, whenever this happened, that the reason the show isn't ending is because of Lisa Vanderpump. It's her namesake show. And if she has anything to do with it, she's going to want that to continue on. But we have had so many conversations about what is Vanderpump Rules? Is it people working at SUR, or is it this specific cast? I think it was the specific cast. I think Lisa Vanderpump thinks it's about SUR and the people working at SUR. And I mean, you look at the new promo for it, she's right smack dab in the middle of that photo. And it just feels like Lisa really wants to maintain control over her namesake show. It feels like she's trying to reclaim the show as her own a little bit, even because a common talking point about Vanderpump Rules in the later seasons is what is Lisa's purpose? You know what I mean? Like, none of them worked at SUR anymore. I mean, in my opinion, half the cast doesn't even like Lisa Vanderpump. We know Sheena has said all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm not really entirely sure that Ariana and Katie are on the best terms with her. I don't know. We don't know what it's like behind closed doors. We don't know if they're calling each other every day or not. But Lisa would come to the reunion. She would sit right next to Andy. And it's like, for what? To mediate? Like, okay. I just feel like she's wanting to reclaim her show in this reboot. Another reason that I'm skeptical to this Vanderpump Rules reboot, and this is just one example, and it's nothing personal, but when I saw this cast reveal and I see this guy, I'm like, he looks familiar, right? Like, if you watch a lot of reality TV, you recognize Chris Hahn. And that is because he's been on 2 other reality shows. He's been on Dated and Related and Perfect Match season 2. And I'm not saying that you can't go on multiple reality shows, but if you're wanting vintage Vanderpump, casting reality show regulars, it isn't giving, it's just a messy SUR employee. It's kind of giving, I'm seeking out this opportunity to be on Vanderpump Rules, because I'm going to jog your memory. Tom Sandoval actually did an interview not too long ago, but saying that the reboot isn't going to be as authentic as the OG, saying people move to LA strictly to be on this reboot version of Vanderpump Rules. So again, like I said, if you want to cast a new show with new people, be my guest. But to me, Vanderpump Rules will forever be Jax, Stassi, Kristen, Tom, Ariana, Katie, Schwartz, Sheena, James, and Lala. It reminds me of like these live action movies that they try to remake, and we're always like, oh, it's going to be so cool. And then we see it and we're like, not as cool as we thought it was going to be, right? So I don't know. I will watch it, of course. We're all going to watch it, right? I just don't have the highest expectations because I feel like nothing can be the original. And if that's the case, make it something different. Let's move on to Dancing with the Stars. Danielle Fishel was eliminated this week on Dancing with the Stars, and Andy Richter is still standing, and that has caused a lot of opinions, a lot of feedback. I don't even know what to say about it. This actually is the moment where Andy Richter staying in the competition becomes a problem. You know, it was funny. It was cute. I was voting for Andy because I was a big proponent of the emotional attachment, pulling on the heartstrings, watching him get better. I think this is the last week that I could stomach Andy staying ahead of somebody else. Because if we get to next week and Dylan Efron goes home before Andy Richter, I will be unwell as a human. I don't think I would be able to take that. And I feel like, you know, some people felt that way about Danielle. I personally didn't, because I feel like, you know, there's been let's talk about what Danielle's Boy Meets World co-star said first. They also do a podcast with her. They're saying that it was a personal vendetta against Danielle. So Will Friedle said, Carrie Ann has her favorites, which she does, but she'll have 2 or 3 that no matter what they do, they could walk on the stage, trip, hit their face, and she'd be like, you tried so hard, 9. And then Danielle does the best thing where she's doing triple flips, and she's like, you've got to hold your shoulders different too. And it's like, what the heck? Ryder Strong said, I held back the anger. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. At this point, starting to feel like a personal vendetta. I don't think it's a personal vendetta. I think it is, again, the flaw in this revised scoring system where everybody's not starting off on a level playing field. They are scoring people as to what the best of their ability is. And I kind of feel like Danielle was steady good. But in order, in my opinion, to get above an 8, you have to, and we talked about this last week, you have to have like a wow factor moment to get a 9 or a 10 where you're like leaving everybody speechless. I personally never got that feeling from Danielle sitting on my couch, except for I think it was what was it? It wasn't a paso. It was the one where she was in all black. You know, that moment, I think she really deserved the highest scores of the season. But again, you know, I understand their frustration, and there of course is a bias because they're close to her, and they acknowledge that too. But I do think that if she wasn't gone this week, she would have been gone next week. So it's like, are you really going to get too bent out of shape if she went home 1 week earlier than she was supposed to? But Andy, if we have another Bobby Bones situation with Andy Richter, I'm sorry, if Andy Richter beats Robert Irwin or Alex Earl or Jordan Childs or even Whitney Levitt, I will be so mad. like it's just TV, okay? It's not that big of a deal. It is. You know, when they say it's not that deep, it is. If we get another Bobby Bones with Andy Richter, it is going to be that deep. And I will take absolutely no prisoners. But it is what it is. Can we talk about how wild Flava Flav was with his paddles? Alex Earl deserved a 40. I have screamed it from the mountaintop. Flava Flav actually did a People magazine interview right after the show and said, yeah, I accidentally hit the wrong button. Show the guest judges how to hit the buttons, okay? Like, did anybody show Flava Flav actually what to do? Because Carrie Ann was running around like a chicken with her head cut off, being like, Flav, don't lock it. Flav, don't lock it. And we're like, what is going on? Chaos. Absolute chaos. But anyways, I think I don't know. I still want Robert Irwin to win. I want Alex Earl to get second, and I want either Jordan or Whitney to get third. That's where I stand at this current moment in time. My chair, you guys, I don't know if you can hear it. Squeaksville. I really need to get another podcast chair. Okay, anyways. I just drew all of your attention to it. We have to talk about Kayla Nicole's Halloween costume. This did not get the media attention it deserved, and I don't know why. I'm going to explain the situation to you. You can infer why, but I'm not happy about it because this was an expert level clapback, I believe, at Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. If you don't know who Kayla Nicole is a model, has a background in broadcast journalism. She was on this season of Special Forces and is Travis Kelce's ex-girlfriend. They dated for a long time. I do believe that that was the last relationship that Travis Kelce was in before he started dating Taylor Swift. So obviously in this latest album drop from Taylor, The Life of a Showgirl, there is this song on there called Opalite. The song is 1000% about Travis Kelce. His birthstone is an opal. She talked in interviews about that idea. Thing has like 8 layers of meaning. So the show is definitely about Taylor or Travis. Here's some of the lyrics of that song. You couldn't understand it, why you felt alone. You were in it for real. She was in her phone and you were just a pose. So whenever this came out, all of the Swifties were like, ooh, that lyric is definitely about Kayla Nicole. And it seemingly is saying that in their relationship, Travis felt alone. He was in it for the right reasons, but Kayla was just in it for the clout, essentially. Kayla Nicole did not say a word. She didn't bite back until Halloween. And she still didn't really, it wasn't pointed, but it was pointed. You know what I mean? So Kayla Nicole posted this TikTok dressed as Toni Braxton to the music video, He Wasn't Man Enough for Me, which... iconic song, by the way. I've been singing it all week ever since I heard it. He wasn't man enough for me. Anyways, we're going to break down the lyrics. But first, let me say the girl looked incredible, flawless. I was like, wow, I'm glad I did not participate in Halloween this year because I will never in a million years look the way that Kayla Nicole does. I mean, just like, wow. I watched the video a million times, mesmerized. But here are the parts that she lip synced. Did you know about us back then? Do you know I dumped your husband, girlfriend? I'm not thinking about him. I'm not thinking about him. But you married him. Do you know I made him leave? Do you know he begged to stay with me? He wasn't man enough for me. Look, I'm not saying that Taylor Swift has anything to be ashamed of or anything like that, but if I were Taylor Swift in this situation, you'd never see me again. Not for at least 5 to 7 business days. I would be like, oh gosh, she got me. She clocked me good because like that is an expert level clapback. No shade, Swifties. You guys know. I allow you to have your thing. If Taylor Swift is your thing, live your best life, live, laugh, love, be a Swiftie all the live long day. But you have to acknowledge the fact that this was an expert level clapback. Wow. And I feel like it was not anywhere. I feel like it wasn't on E! News. It was on Page 6. I did see it on Page 6. It wasn't on Us Weekly. And I was like, this deserves a moment in cultural history. I mean, the lyrics got a moment, right? Anyways, the bear was poked. And I love that Kayla Nicole just sat back and waited for the right opportunity, And it's like, oh, don't read the comment section if you're a Swiftie. Don't read that. Although I did see some people in the comment section that were Swifties that were like, okay, I'm a Swiftie, and I even agree that this was epic. But look, you have to anticipate that sometimes people are going to retaliate if you poke the bear. And that's what happened. All right, let's move on to this week's deep dive. We're going to get into Selling Sunset Season 9, which is now streaming on Netflix. And it always works like this. As soon as I came down to record the podcast, I get on the internet. It's like, reunion just dropped. I'm like, of course. Of course, they didn't give a reunion date, which was weird. We saw the looks, but we didn't get a date. Well, it's out now. So by the time you listen to this, I probably will have watched the reunion. Let me start by saying this. Selling Sunset is going through a little bit of an identity crisis. And I feel like a lot of reality shows go through the same crisis around this time, 9, 10 seasons in, where is the show about the cast or is it about selling real estate with a side of drama? I would normally say the cast. I mean, even when we talked about Vanderpump Rules earlier, I said that show is about the cast. I actually think Selling Sunset is more about the premise of the show than it is the cast. I watch Selling Sunset to look at these immaculate mansions in Los Angeles, be jealous of their commission check, And every now and again, you get an interesting storyline, personal storyline, a little argument here, a little argument there. But it's been flipped. And I've seen that comment a lot online saying this season felt very toxic. You know, the drama was just a bit too much. This isn't selling Sunset. The lines have been blurred a little bit about delivering good reality TV drama and making a show that's draining to watch. And it's like, how many bell rings were there this season? Like, how many houses did they actually sell? I think one singular, if I remember correctly. And I do understand that the circumstances that were happening in California at the time could have contributed to that with the wildfires. But I almost feel like I wish they would have leaned in a little more to that. I mean, I know that they did, but, you know, not this random storyline about Sandra allegedly King Chrishell's former assistant's car years ago. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? It just felt weird. And I felt like that a lot during the season of Selling Sunset. Also, the cast is extremely divided on the show. You know, we see it play out, but we're seeing it even more so now in real time. On the show, it's Chrishell, Chelsea, and Emma. They're a little pod squad. And then everyone else, Mary, Bree, Sandra. In the middle is Amanda and Alana, which Alana, the most normal real estate agent to walk through those Oppenheim doors. Like, she actually wears business suits that you would still see a real estate agent wearing when you go look at a house. And I'm like, I would want to be friends with her because she seems the least dramatic. But let's go through some of the biggest blow-ups. The first big one, and probably the biggest of the season, was this blow-up between Chrishell and Nicole at Girlsgiving, which Chrishell and Nicole, they've never gotten along. They will never get along. So it was only a matter of time before we had a big moment like this, but it kind of starts off with they're going around saying what they're thankful for. Nicole says she's thankful for her eyesight because she had a injury and you know, there was a week where she couldn't see correctly. And Chrishell had an attitude about it. Like, we can't deny it. She was rolling her eyes. She was like, okay, Nicole, you can't see, you know, like a little bratty in my opinion. Now, I don't believe that excuses the escalation from Nicole, which we'll get there. But, you know, Chrishell has been saying stuff about Nicole for a lot of seasons, alleged drug use, which Nicole always denied. And I know that in this season, Amanda said something about Nicole and her using together in the past. Well, Amanda actually backtracked that comment at the reunion. I did see a clip of that before coming on and recording this today. So, you know, I don't know. But then Nicole says something about Chrishell's late parents. And this is what I mean about the show being draining. Because, like, what? I would never be cut out for reality TV, because in what world do you say that to somebody on camera that's going to be broadcast globally for the world to hear? Like, could not be me, truly. I was like, what in the world just happened? And if I was Chrishell, I would react the same exact way. I thought it was below the belt. Another big feud this season is between Chelsea and Mary, which seems way blown out of proportion when you remember where this argument between the two of them originated. It was last season. Chelsea showed up at an open house with like a short skirt on, and Mary was like, that's not an appropriate outfit to come to work in. And it's like, well, no, they all wear the 6-inch stripper heels. Like, we always see it every year. Like, what are these women wearing to show houses? That's like, if they got it flaunt, it seems like the mentality. So to single Chelsea out, I thought was like kind of silly, because they all do it, right? But it festered and it leaked into this season, and it felt like it became this deep disdain between Mary and Chelsea. And, you know, Mary this season is dealing with this home burglary, which is horrible. I mean, we see some of it play out on the show from their security footage of masked men jumping over the garage door or whatever it is. Chelsea sends flowers on camera and Mary flips out over it. We got a lot of fourth wall breaks this season of Selling Sunset where, and this happens too when you get 10 years into a show, where Mary's like yelling at the producer, you guys, like, she only sent this because she knew I was filming today. How did she know that you guys were filming at my house at this time so that the flowers would show up so that she would look better on TV? They have this confrontation at a dinner for Mary, and Chelsea is like, I don't need your screen time. They're going to get my face with or without me sending you flowers. So the fact that you're making this this accusation is crazy to me. And I'm like, okay, if I was Chelsea, I would probably feel the same way. Like, it's kind of rude of Mary to accuse her of doing that. And it's like, if you're not on it's so interesting because actually this has happened in reality TV before. I think it was the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. You remember, it was between Erica Jane and Lisa Vanderpump. I believe it was when Lisa Vanderpump's brother passed away. Erica sent flowers and Lisa was like, I would have liked a text. And Erica's like, well, we're not at that level where I think you would be open to a text. And she's like, well, I actually feel like a text is more sincere than flowers. So it just is a difference of perspective, I think. I don't think either one is right or wrong. But when Chelsea starts yelling at Brett and Jason for wanting to cut the cameras, they're like, okay, guys, cut. And she's like, we're not cutting now. Like, you guys got the content you wanted. We're going to keep the cameras rolling. I was just like, again, this fight has now escalated into a place where it didn't need to go. And then at the Galentine's, when Mary starts crying at a literal place card, I'm like, okay, it's entirely too much. Maybe the most surprising feud of the season, the crack started to form during the season, was between Emma and Chrishell. We now know, based on all the social media activity, that they are currently not friends. And it all boils down to Emma's boyfriend, Blake. Not only does Chrishell disapprove, she also has what feels like a deep disdain for him. And in the beginning, you know, I'm not up on who Emma Hernan is dating, right? Except for when I watched the show. I'm one of those people where this sounds terrible, but I'm not really that interested in a cast when their show's not on the air. You know, it's like, I'm not going to Emma Hernan's profile every day to see who she's dating. I'll watch it play out on the show. If there's social media happening at the same time, I'll try to stay up to date on it. But that's just not my vibe, right? So we didn't really know a whole lot about Blake coming into the season, and what we saw of him on the show was short. There was only a couple scenes, and Emma was back and forth. 1 second she was with him, 1 second she was not. Chrishell, was very vocal about the fact that she did not like Blake. And in the beginning, I did feel bad for Emma because it almost felt like Chrishell was like picking on Emma a little bit over Blake. Like, we get it, you don't like him, but leave it alone a little bit. After I'm seeing more of this stuff that's come out about Blake, I can't say that I think Chrishell was wrong for thinking that Emma is way too good for this guy. Putting Emma in derogatory positions online. Again, I tried to comb through all the social media activity. It's a lot, but a lot of it seems, and I'm sure we'll get more details about this on the reunion. If you guys have already watched it, I'm sure this is kind of, you guys get what I'm saying. But Chrishell is claiming that he made some disparaging comments about G and posted hateful stories. And if that's the truth, why would Emma think that Chrishell would be okay with somebody like that? And why would Emma think that her relationship with Chrishell wouldn't be collateral damage of hateful things that Blake is allegedly saying about Chrishell's partner, G? Like, what else was Emma expecting if it all is playing out the way that Chrishell is saying that it is? I don't know the guy, like I said, but it does seem like Emma is out of his league, and apparently Emma and Chelsea don't speak anymore as well. So I do believe we'll get more information about that on the reunion. The last big piece of drama is like the king of the car situation. And it starts by this new real estate agent, Sandra, which Chrishell says she's actually not a real estate agent, or she wasn't at the time of filming. But Sandra says, is something off between the two of us? Chrishell, and she's like, well, let me ask you, do you know this person? And she shows a photo of her former assistant's state ID. I'm like, why does Chrishell have a picture of her former assistant's ID just ready to go on her phone? Like, I thought that was kind of weird. And what does the story have to do with anything, really? You know, and I think this scene is a good example of what gives fans the Chrishell is a mean girl ammunition. I don't necessarily buy into that narrative. I think there are moments where Chrishell can be a little mean, but I also realize that Adam DeVillo, the creator of Selling Sunset, also created The Hills. And now that we're 20 years removed from that show, we all know that it's heavily scripted. And Chrishell is a soap actor. So I kind of watch the show under that guise where it's probably not line for line scripted, but I do believe that Selling Sunset is soft scripted. I do believe that. But anyways, Chrishell talked about that moment on her Instagram as well. She says, I was told the point of this scene was because Sandra had said something about me not being nice to her while filming. So they wanted her to tell me. I had no idea what she was going to say because this was news to me. She says, but if it looks like I'm being fake, it's because I was. I was highly annoyed to have to do the storyline again when I hadn't done anything to her, on top of her not even having a license at the time. She wrote, this is like, she's pretending to be a producer. She says, hey, Chrishell, we're going to throw a fake realtor at you. And even though you took her to lunch, she told the others that you were mean to her. So now we need to follow up on that. Annoying. So I did read that Sandra got her real estate license in March of 2025. And apparently they were filming Valentine's Day events. So you can put two and two together. Several of the ladies are on the verge of leaving the show by the seams of it, right? By the end of it, we know Nicole is out to Nashville, which she got fired. So it's not like she would be back next season anyways. Mary is looking at Nicole being like, I think I should follow you. Like, I want to get out of here too. This isn't good for me. I don't know if I can do this anymore. Chrishell said that in an interview. She said the reunion was so brutal. In that moment, I realized I will be done here going forward. I wish everyone the best, but this isn't the place for me. It felt a little bit like a dog pile. I don't know when they will start filming. I hope they never tell me. That's Chrishell's mindset. And even though Mary seemed like she was going to ride off into the sunset, she was at the 2025 National Television Awards. And this is what she said. As long as everyone's on the same page on the direction that we want to go the show in, I'll always be back. Chelsea was at that same event and she said that she was undecided. So they had like a little premiere party, but it wasn't an official premiere party. It wasn't put on by Netflix. It was put on by Brie. And everybody went except for Chrishell and Chelsea. So I don't know what that means. I was reading the interviews. Brie said they actually weren't invited because we felt like that would be the best course of action. When it comes to Chrishell leaving, I do think that even though she's technically not an OG, like who are the OGs? Amanda, Mary, Brett, and Jason, obviously. I do feel like Chrishell is the central character of Selling Sunset. So I don't know if there's a show without her. That's just my personal opinion. I'm one of those weird ones that misses Christine, like I'm one of those, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs type of girls. But I do also feel like I've heard Chrishell say on multiple occasions that this would be her last season, this would be her last season, this would be her last season, and it never ends up being true. So it's like every time I see Chrishell say something, I'm just like, she's a soap actress. So I don't know. I don't know if she's just playing with us, she's just messing with us, if she's just making sure that the show is successful and people are talking about it. Like that's how I kind of feel about it. But I'll get back to you after the reunion. Speaking of reunions, final thoughts this week, we have to talk about Love is Blind and the first ever outdoor reunion. That was odd. wasn't it? I felt like it looked like a resort deck. Like, do you guys remember when we used to go to Panama City Beach for spring break and there was like the pool and then there was like this little makeshift dance floor with these steel like rods, and they had the lights coming down. Like, I felt like that. I felt like we were in Panama City Beach getting ready to do the wobble. It took me back to those days. And right off the gate, Sparkle Megan does have a baby. So, it feels good to be right about some speculation because you got to tread lightly with those types of things. She has a baby boy named Brooks, which I didn't know if I wanted to say this or not because I keep these types of things close to my chest. No, I'm not pregnant, but David and I have boy names that we like. We can never figure out girl names. We're just like, I don't know what I'm going to name a future child. Like, I don't know. And that's one of the most fun parts about potentially having a baby, right? Is like dressing it up in cute clothes and naming it, giving it some sense of identity. And I always liked the name Brooks for a girl, but David is one of those people who I like gender neutral names and David doesn't. So when that happened, he was like, oh, can't name our girl Brooks. I'm like, dude. So it's kind of ruined for me. Sorry, Sparkle Megan, that your happy moment put a damper potentially on a future baby name for me. I'll do it anyways. But Megan's like, yeah, I have this new boyfriend. His name is Paul. The timeline, people were like, okay, it's a little quick. Show wrapped in April. They met in July, pregnant 3 months in, but they're happy. Paul's been amazing. Jordan says, I already knew, which I'm glad. He says, if I would have found out in this setting, would have been a little bit jarring. He said, I got a DM from a subpar human, basically is what he said. And he said, so I just went to Megan and I asked directly, they seem to be friends, which I'm not entirely surprised by. I kind of thought that they might have rekindled things just based on what they were saying in the press about each other. They never were disparaging about each other, which I think is really nice. And then, Jordan is single. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but he posted a video with his baby mama, Luca's mom, and she's like super cute. So like Jordan knows how to get a bad chick. So I think he'll be totally fine. Live, laugh, love. I hate the fact that Megan went on a date with Mike. Love the fact that she said there was absolutely no chemistry between them. I'm like, okay, thank God. She says, Blake and I grabbed a drink to kind of apologize, clear the air. And that's where we left it. So happy and healthy for Mama Megan. You know what I loved about this? I loved that Allie and the rest of the girls had no idea because Megan was like, yeah, I don't mess with you guys. And I'll get into this a little bit more. I was kind of surprised by Allie's demeanor in the in the Love is Blind reunion. I felt like it was a different demeanor than we had seen on the show. And, I know Megan was on AD's podcast and she said, yeah, I don't hang out with those people because I've outgrown the situation. I feel like you could see that at the reunion, my personal opinion. So we have Cassie, and Patrick. And I'm just sitting here being like, I cannot believe that so much of our time, because this season was such a dud and nobody got married, we were spending so much time on Casey and Patrick, who left after episode 6. I know a lot of people are mean to Casey. You should be thankful for Casey for giving y'all something to talk about and complain about, because if not, we'd be sitting here bored out of our mind. But the ring thing was the strangest thing ever. Casey and Patrick, they're going back and forth. They're fighting about a ring that nobody actually paid for. Netflix paid for it. Casey was like, you told me that I could keep it in the lobby after we broke up. And he's like, yeah, that's because I thought that we were still going to date. They're playing hot potato with the ring at this point. They're like, boop, 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 boop. Oh, I got it. Hold the phone. Chris Paul's here. What do you mean Chris Paul is here to decide who gets the ring? What do you mean Chris Paul is here to decide who gets the ring? Are we in the Twilight Zone? Are we in the Twilight Zone? It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Then we get this revelation that Casey and Joe dated. And I'm like, you know what? It actually makes sense. It actually kind of makes sense to me. 6 weeks post-filming, it fizzled naturally. They're like, it's not the reason Madison and Joe broke up. Casey was like, look, at the tux fitting is when Joe was the runaway bride. He decided he didn't want to marry you. We didn't have the pause on the chest, googly eyes. until after that. And Madison's just not having it. You know, she's like, I'm not having it. I wasn't even told about the fact that you ran away from your tux fitting. Why was I not told about this? And I understand that Madison can be a little bit annoying at times, but I have been where Madison was. And under those circumstances, I have also been very annoying, you know? So I'm not going to sit here and put the hammer down on Madison for getting under my skin a little bit, because when you date people like Joe, it turns you into an annoying person. You know, like, you ignore the red flags because they're cute and funny and everybody loves them and they can rock a mustache on a whim. But meanwhile, they're making you the most annoying version of yourself. And all of your friends are like, girl, you better get it the heck together before you really blow it all up. You're driving yourself nuts trying to make an immature guy your husband. So it is what it is. Annie and Nick got zero attention at the Love is Blind reunion. And honestly, I'm kind of happy for it. You know, Annie was like, I kind of forced things with Nick the entire time. I wasn't letting him off the hook in the moment because I really wanted to try. I was texting my best friend Haley, letting her know, don't book the flight to come to our wedding because it wasn't happening. And that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. That couple was a fever dream. Like, Andy and Nick were the true definition of a fever dream. So Kate and Brendan went on a date. And again, Casey is in the middle of some drama here. They went on a date post-show. Kate says there was a group hangout at Casey's apartment. We were all there. All the girls were there. I was telling them, hey, I'm excited. I'm going on a date with Brendan. It seems to be going really well. She says later that night, Brendan was all over Casey. Cameras weren't there. Can't confirm or deny. I do feel like, you know, Casey, I could see it both ways. You know, I could see instances where Casey would be an easy target to like paint her out to be the villain. I could also see a world where Casey is a big flirt. So, I don't know. Allie and Anton, like I said, I have to be honest, I didn't love the energy from Allie during this reunion. She came across a little smug to me, and I really liked Allie throughout the season. You know, they talked about the conversation with the random friend in the bathroom about the strip clubs, and it was quite surprising to me to learn that Allie and Anton had never actually had a full-blown conversation about that conversation. They were like, yeah, we probably should have talked about it, but, you know, the night shift makes us unable to communicate with each other. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of strange. But I worked early mornings, and I can honestly say when I was talking every day at 6 a.m., by the time I came home, I didn't want to speak to another human until 6 a.m. the next day. So I kind of understand it, to be completely honest with you. She says, we never had meaningful conversations outside the pods. Anton says, we did talk, just not on camera. And I forget if it was Nick or if it was Vanessa, but they were like, what was the moment you decided that Anton wasn't the one? Allie says, probably in Baja when he wore those flip-flops. And I'm like, that is such a weird thing to say. And I genuinely could not tell if she was kidding or being serious. Like, part of me was like, that's so ridiculous that she has to be kidding, but she kind of seemed serious. I was like, that is so rude. So nasty, so rude. He's in a relationship now, and she wants to keep her love life private until she ends up on Perfect Match, I can assume. So last but certainly not least, let's talk about Edmund and KB. Again, a lot of the time, like last week when we were talking about Edmund and KB, a lot of it comes down to the emotional maturity issue. And, you know, from KB's perspective, Edmund was very manipulative of her. She says, we would get in these arguments and your default reaction would be to cry. And honestly, you know, I talked about this last week. I don't see Edmund being manipulative. I see him being emotionally immature. And I don't say this often, I think Nick Lachey kind of got it right. He says, you know, what did he say? I actually wrote the whole quote out in my docs. Let's see if I still have it because yeah, here it goes. Sorry, I'm just going to look this up. Okay. I wrote, Nick hit the nail on the head. I don't see Edmund as a manipulator. I see him as emotionally immature, and he reacts in an overly emotional manner. That wasn't Nick's direct quote, but you guys get it. Like, I don't think Edmund is sitting there being like, how can I manipulate KB with my emotions? I think that Edmund probably never learned proper way to handle conflict or pain or hard conversations, and that is a trauma response. That's the way I read it. KB says to him, don't accept that kind of love. That's not what love looks like, which I appreciated her saying that, and it kind of reiterated the things that she said to him at the altar, which it's like, for however many issues there were between KB and Edmund, I do believe that she had love for him and wanted the best for him and understood that because of his past, he could take this, you know, in a way that she doesn't necessarily mean. So I love the fact that she continues to reaffirm him. Edmund says, I wouldn't have gotten a woman like you without this experience. They hug it out. Goodbye forever to Love is Blind season 9. Woohoo! Yeah, we did it. Wow, what a crazy season. I think they're coming to my neck of the woods pretty soon. I think they did a season in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. So I'll let you know if any of my friends are on it. Bravo Friday happening. We're going to talk more about the Vanderpump Rules trailer. I'm going to give you more detail on the cast individually. We're going to talk about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills trailer. Bachelor Tuesday popped off with all of this Gary Teresa drama. They're at war, okay? They're at war. And we are writing her for Teresa Nist. Another sentence I never thought I would say. So if you want more pop culture content, make sure you're subscribed. Patreon.com/Morgan's Pop Talks. You can join Bravo Friday, Bachelor Tuesday, or the Love You Like Assist tier where you also get some Survivor recaps. If not, I will see you next week. Last episode before BravoCon. Make sure you're subscribed. If you have not given a rating, a little 5-star boop boop, a little Love You Like Assist because you know I do. And we'll see you back next week. Bye, everyone.